other day, I observed a player placing beacons pretty deep inside their own spawn. This is, of course, worse than useless. It's an expenditure of time and the player's ink tank to provide a jump point that's slower than spawning back into the game from the default launch and swimming out. It's also not helping anyone who's currently in play to jump to safety, because at that point they would get to the same place just by targeting their jump by pressing down on the D-pad, and that saves them time aiming their reticle at the beacon. But in thinking about it, I realized I didn't have a great idea of exactly how far away you have to be super jumping before it's worth it to jump instead of just swimming in from spawn. Now, I'm not going to be able to give you exact numbers. I'd need some kind of debug access to be able to see real objective numbers measured in the in-game distance units, and even then those numbers would be pretty variable because different maps have different routes you want to take to get to mid, assuming mid is even where you're trying to get in the first place. There's such a complexity of other variables that getting hard data on every possibility just isn't worth it. All I really wanted to do was find a good rule of thumb so you can make a decent, rough judgment of how far you're going to travel by swimming before it'll be more efficient to grab a ticket on Squid Airlines. The build I chose to test with was a little bit quicker than average on both fronts. I ran 2 subs of Quick Super Jump, where I think there are more builds that will only run 1 sub, but I also ran 1 of Swim Speed. I was using the Kraken Roller, which is a mid-weight weapon. Lightweight weapons will swim faster, while heavyweight weapons will swim slower. I also wasn't wearing Ninja Squid, which will also slow you down. According to Sendu's build analyzer, a super jump without any gear affecting it will take 3 seconds and 38 frames, or about 3.63 seconds. 1 sub of Quick Super Jump cuts that to 3 seconds and 16 frames, or 3.267, and the second sub gets you down another 8 frames to 3.13. I did some tests on my own to confirm this, and that was right around the length of the super jump I was getting regardless of where I placed the beacons. Quick aside, because I was looking into it, 1 sub of Quick Super Jump gives you an insane amount of value. That much time being taken off your super jump is nuts, given the super jump itself is only 3.5 seconds anyway, and all of the time that's saved is taken out of the part of the super jump where you're vulnerable, sitting on the ground. I think it's an absurd idea to not have at least 1 sub of this on any weapon that ever wants to super jump. And I really like running 2 subs personally on everything I can get away with running it on. Anyway, since the amount of time the super jump takes is totally independent of the distance it has to travel, all you really have to do is figure out how far you can make it swimming during that 3.13 to 3.63 seconds. That's nice because it cuts out a lot of the variables, but unless you feel like going and testing various routes on all the different maps, here's what I've found to be a good rule of thumb. I reach this sponge on Hagglefish in about the exact amount of time it takes to super jump there. In messing around and removing the swim speed gear or comparing to a single sub of Quick Super Jump, it doesn't make much of a difference, so that's going to be my landmark. Think of how far this sponge is from spawn. If you're jumping any closer than this, just swim out. One other thing to consider is that jumping introduces an element of risk that doesn't exist from swimming out. If you swim out, you can stop and change directions or even jump back at any time. If you jump, though, you are 100% going to land on that spot no matter what happens in the next 3 seconds, so it's fundamentally less safe to super jump than it is to swim the same distance. Even if you're going to save yourself a little bit of time super jumping, if it's into a contested area, the risk is probably too great to be worth it, and I'd err on the side of swimming in.